Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast, Brave Enough, Renew, Recreate, Recover You. This is Julianne, and I wanted to start and talk a little bit about a couple of books. First is my book called Head Above Water. If you haven't had the opportunity to take a look at that, it's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and it is a story of my recovery from the death of my husband by suicide, but also gives you tips on resilience and how I overcame all of the grief. And even though grief never goes away, how I was able to establish a new life that has joy and love in it. And then also I have with me a really awesome guest, Yana, I said it perfect earlier, Yana Yaneva, and she is in Edinburgh, Scotland. And the second book I want to talk about is one that we are in together, and it's called Unleash Her. And we are two of the co-authors of that book. Each of us have a chapter. She can talk a little bit about hers, but mine is about building resilience, a lifetime of resilience and overcoming difficult situations. I'm going to introduce Yana now so that you can learn a little bit about her. And she has just an amazing depth of knowledge in psychology and human behavior, and is going to give us a lot of really good tips today. But let me just tell you about her first. She is an author, speaker, an experienced people and talent specialist, a certified psychologist, a member of the British Psychological Society, a life coach, a well-being mentor, and on top of that, she's a friend. She's mine now, and I'm so excited. A sister, a daughter, a wild spirit, and along with that, the owner and founder of PandoraSoul.com, the first ever subscription box for self-help, built specifically for women to boost overall well-being in the comfort of your own home and without spending a fortune. The box is a combination between the science of psychology and NLP practices, combining years of research and life experience. Yana's journey started when she was a teenager, and she fell in love with psychology and the theory of the invisible connection between consciousness and subconsciousness. Ever since, she's been studying, exploring, and researching those connections in real time and life experience and behavioral patterns across different cultures, locations, and backgrounds of people. So welcome. I am so excited we were able to get this together with our 8-hour time change and our crazy schedules. I am going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit more about what you're doing, and then we can talk a little bit about some of the issues around trauma and grief and resilience. You just have so many things to talk about today. So I'm going to turn it to you.
Thank you, Julianne. It's so good to be here. Good afternoon from Scotland, and good morning to your audience in the States. So yeah, as you said, my journey started when I was a teenager, a long time ago now, it feels like. But my curiosity about psychology never stopped, and I kept learning, developing myself in that area. I kept following on the brightest minds in that science. And I've been moving around quite a lot in Europe. So I managed to observe, explore, and conclude basically different behaviors based on, cultural consciousness, behaviors that are passed on from generations that are not really our own conscious behaviors, but we inherit with where we're coming from. So that really defines us a lot. And it was during the COVID pandemic when I was managing a team in a company, and my team was struggling so much with mental health. They all felt like they really pushed to the corner with all the news every day, with the number of death cases rising, and with people losing their jobs every day. It was quite a big stressful time for them. So as a good leader, and I have always believed in leading by example, I decided that I'm gonna try and help them and support them mainly in their mental health state. So I did a big research, and I couldn't find anything suitable for my team. It was either on one side, it was group session therapists with many people, which I didn't feel quite suitable for someone who needs to be private and really talk about themselves. Or the other option was booking with a specialist for a number of sessions that was too expensive for them to afford, to be honest. So this was when I decided that I'm going to take a leap of faith and I'm going to try and create a product that is accessible, it's flexible, it can be done in your own time, it's affordable, and it's for women. Because for me, women are something incredible. We are something incredible. We are mothers, we are daughters, we're neighbors, we're colleagues. We stand behind, you know what they say, every successful man has a woman behind. And we are kind of, that strong emotional balance in really difficult times, and we're very easily to adjust, and we combine analytical mindset with emotional balance. So I really wanted to focus my knowledge and effort in that area. So I created that subscription box. And a lot that I have learned from psychology is basically, the more you look inside yourself, the more quickly you're going to find answers instead of going outside. So I've implemented in the box therapeutic journaling. For me, this is probably the most beneficial and successful way into getting to know yourself a bit better and understanding your limits and boundaries. And journaling has been around for centuries. We can trace it back all the way to ancient Greece. We can see it in ancient Rome. Mark Aurelius is one of the most famous people who have been journaling every day. And now his journals are actually published and called the Meditations. And the reason for that is, when, from biological point of view, when we focus into writing something specific, our brainwaves slow down. So we kind of slow down time, and your entire being is being relaxed, basically. So a lot of people in psychology equal meditation, actual meditation, with journaling because of the same conditioning of the body. And for me personally, I find it very powerful to be able to sit down and write my thoughts and, brain dump everything that's keeping me busy in my head, without judgment, without fear that someone will be, looking at me, without any guilt that, what I'm writing is wrong or right. It's just my thoughts, and it's just me being myself. So it's one of the things I put in that box that I find very useful, and I would highly recommend to anyone to try and do. There is also a lot of exercises I put for creativeness, for productiveness, for, ways that we can measure our stress levels, that we can be aware of our pressuring points. And the other bit of the box is very much focused on our biological state of being, which is usually determined by our 5 senses. So anything from aromatherapy, from candles, from nice warm bath, with a nice smell. It's always a way to give your body a break. And then when you combine your physical break with your mental break, you get a full circle of well-being. So this is basically my box, and I'm really humbled how an idea that I just came up with for my team is now being distributed across Europe and the States. A lot of women are reaching out to me to tell me that the effect that the box is having on them, and how grateful they are. But really, I'm the one that's really grateful. I'm just happy. It's giving people something that you can really put value on.
That is really cool. And, I think too, for people who have problems meditating, because some people complain or mention, and myself included, that it's hard to quiet your mind if you're just sitting there. It still runs. The journaling is really a way, like you said, it really gives that same physical benefit of the meditation, but it focuses your time. So I think that's a great point. That I actually, you just taught me something. I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's quite important, for people to just be aware that all those words we use, and everything that we put labels on, you can call it meditation, you can call it journaling, you can call it yoga in the morning, running, all of that has the same effect on the body, and it gives you the same brain dump that we need. And it's really important that people can try different things, but what works for me doesn't necessarily going to work for them. So that's why I chose journaling, and I've been doing it for many years now, ever since I started studying psychology. And it works for me exactly because I'm not wondering if it's helping me or if it's not. I'm not wondering, oh, it's 5 a.m. I need to do my meditation because I need to get ready at 6 a.m. and go to work and so on. I'm doing it whenever I want and the way I want. I can journal on a piece of paper while waiting for my coffee at the coffee shop and just have an idea in my mind. And I'm like, oh, I need to write that down because I need to go back and reflect on that. And that flexibility and that freedom is very important for me. And that's why I decided that, we also have that. It should not be labeled one way or another. It's the overall effect that has on us. So it's really combining mental health with physical health, that it's the only way to give you your overall state of being to be well. And that's what we all want.
Mm-hmm. It is. So let's talk a little bit about mental health issues. Obviously, you're a certified psychologist, and this is your expertise. As women, we experience a lot of trauma, and that's what the book Unleash Her is about. It's almost 30 stories of women who have normal women who have done extraordinary things in the face of very difficult situations. And it really comes back to, how do we deal with traumatic situations that happen in our life? How do we step out of that?
Yeah, it's a very big question indeed. And it's a very individual response to that question. Women overall have the ability to be very resilient and very flexible. And a lot of that is the way, from biological and chemical point of view, how we have been made as a gender. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, the different experiences in life, any type of trauma has different levels. So for me, the highest trauma that I could potentially experience would probably be a death of a close one. But we do have trauma every day. We can have a loss of a job. We can lose something that's material and it's precious for us. So that's different levels. So it's very important that we as women reflect on actually what really makes difference for us and what really impacts our existence to determine as a loss and a trauma. I know it's very difficult to explain resilience, for example, because again, resilience has been used around a lot. And I believe there are a lot of meanings behind resilience. Resilience could be, some people determine resilience, for example, as, all right, I'm going to put a face mask and I'm going to pretend everything's fine. And I will, stuck my brain with positive thoughts and everything will be fine. At some point, I'll get used to that. Well, it doesn't work like this. You can try and put that happy face. You can try and stuff your brain with as many positive thoughts as you want. But unless you align your way of thinking with the way you're feeling, it's really pointless. So when we're talking about resilience, the first thing I would say it's important for women to do is really explore their state of being at that moment of trauma. What has happened? How is that affecting you? Why is that affecting you? What potential long impact can that have on you? why is that impact on you? And you know, there are probably 1,000 questions we can ask, and it's very crucial that we answer those questions honestly. There is no point lying here or pretending everything's fine. We all had those moments where we lose something or someone, and it's really painful, right? You want to crawl into bed, you want to cry, you don't want to see anyone, you feel like everything's pointless, there is no meaning to anything, what's the point living, and so on. And we all come to that situation, and that's all right. There should not be any guilt behind that. There should be no judgment behind that. It's okay to feel like this in a trauma. Actually, if you don't experience those feelings, how would you know that you have come out of them and you're feeling well at the end? So opposites are very important in that moment. We need to have the trauma to understand how precious life is for us. We need to have health, you know, to understand how devastating sickness can be, for example. And when we're talking about resilience, facing those emotional states of being, experiencing them, accepting them, staying in them as much as we need, but not allowing them to take over our life is what makes the change at the end. And it's probably easier said than done, but every time there is a trauma happening, always is going to be something good in your life that you can use as an anchor, and you can really get out of bed on that day and be like, this is why I'm living, this is why I'm surviving, and this is why I can overcome everything. Could be kids, could be family members, could be just your burning desire that, you know, you've survived a car crash or something like that. No matter what it is, we need to identify it, no matter the bad feelings and all the blackness we're in and the whole negativity, and be like, okay, I've dealt with those emotions. I understand why I feel like that. This was a big loss for me and a big moment for me. But this is why I now need to get out of bed. And I know I want to get better. And I know I want to get back to life. And I know I want to smile now because I understand myself. And I know what happened in those dark moments I was feeling sad.
I say that too. I mean, you can't release it until you feel it. And so unfortunately, part of getting through that trauma response is that we actually have to sometimes experience some pain. Most of the time we do experience pain. And I think as humans and as women, I think we do everything we can to avoid feeling that negative pain and that emotion. And sometimes it's hard too, because we don't want to accept what really has happened. And I mean, I'm speaking from my experience, of course. You don't want to accept that, you know, for me, that my husband at the age of 38 was gone, that I would never see him again, you know, that I was going to be raising 2 kids on my own. That was not my plan. So sometimes you don't want to experience all that because you don't really want to face what's in the future. On the other hand, we have to face what's in the future because that's what gives us the ability to heal and to get back to a life. It's never the same, but back to a life that's worth living. But you can't get there without doing all the things that you just talked about, really experiencing it.
Exactly. And you absolutely nailed it just now, you know, talking about those things, writing down about those things, it's extremely important. You can't allow yourself to go round and round in circles in your mind and overthink and over remember everything and get overly sad about, you know, past situations and so on. You need to have that progression, and that progression happens when you talk about it, when you write about it, and when you really feel the difference every day after that. That's if you think about, you know, all the practices in psychology and neurolinguistic programming and psychiatrists, all kinds of therapies basically that are supposed to help people rediscover things. It's all about communicating. it's all about talking about that. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that it's been widely spread is that resilience is actually putting on a happy place, on a happy face, and pretending like nothing has happened. Don't talk about what has happened, because the more you talk about it, the more you're going to feel bad. And this is just, it's such a big lie. It's just not true. And everyone who has been through such an emotion can relate how wrong that statement is and how it doesn't help anyone. I myself have lost family members during COVID. And unfortunately, I live far away from home, so I couldn't go back home on time. And I never managed to say goodbye. And I know that had a big effect on me. I think she agrees with me.
Yeah, she does. The kitty cat is like, yes, Yana.
Exactly.
I told her she might misbehave, but if I lock her out, she'll cry. So everybody gets to see, this is Jody. She's my
beautiful
little rescue cat. So she's going to go down now and stop. And, the one thing, that you said, is that communicating. And I think part of, we have the stigma around, not being happy, not having everything together, not being perfect. At least maybe in the United States, I believe that that's something that's very rampant, that if you aren't in that state of perfection, then your life is not as good as someone else's. And then I think what happens is we do take that inside, but then it also isolates us then from all the resources that we need and that are essential for our healing.
Exactly. I totally agree with you. Unfortunately, what I've been observing from psychology point of view, and trust me, it's not only in the United States, it's in the old Europe as well. We as a society have become a heavy consumers. We define ourselves by false ideas, by false names, false lives, and so on. We define our quality of existence with material possessions, and this really takes out the value of everything that's emotionally driven. So can you actually put a price on having the ability to hug your children or your mother or your family? And can you put a price on having an exciting adventure or a hiking with your friends and being on the top of the mountain and having the sunset in front of you? Just because you don't have the material possessions that you see on social media doesn't mean that your quality of life is good or bad. If you do not define yourself and you don't allow yourself to be identified with those material possessions, you can actually discover that you're extremely happy. You're very blessed. You have really good friends. You're coming from a very good, loving family. You have a job that you love, and it comes down to the point, what life would you like to have? And the answer is always the same, pleasant. And then how do you live your everyday? Is it in the direction of having a pleasant life? Or is it in the direction of actually destroying yourself slowly but surely?
And I think I even might add body image into that, because I think
totally.
Especially as women, we base so much of our happiness on the way we look. Do we have wrinkles? Like I told you, today's this Saturday morning, it's a hair and a clip day, so everybody gets me like this. But we base so much on how we look, what we're wearing, what our weight is, do we have the perfect makeup? And, again, I mean, I worked in the nursing home area of healthcare for over 30 years. And what I've learned is that we all age. And if we are lucky, and if we have the privilege of getting old, one thing that happens is our body changes. And I think that we also tend to base, happiness on some of that external stuff. And I mean, I'm just as guilty as the next person, but I hope that we can start to normalize it, because in terms of trauma, there are people who are just scarred by things that other people have said to them about their physical appearance, about the way they dress, et cetera. And that's not okay. but we also have to recognize that we have to support each other in getting to the place where you just talked about, which is how do we really base our happiness and our worth on just being who we are.
Exactly. Totally agree with you. It's a very common thing nowadays. Let's say modern society sickness is that we outsource everything that's truly important for us. We outsource our happiness. We outsource our emotional state of being. We outsource our own idea of ourselves to external events, to external images, and that needs to stop. And a good way to stop that is by knowing yourself. And that's why I recommend and I use journaling in the subscription box a lot. Don't be afraid to ask yourself, is that really important for me that, I have wrinkles on my forehead? Is that really important? Is that changing my quality of life? No, actually, I love them all because this is how I look when I'm grumpy. And this is how I look when I'm happy. And I have my wrinkles. And I love my wrinkles, and they're big expression of how I lived until now. What are my emotions until now? And I discovered that by asking myself those questions. So before we go, all the women out there, before you go and outsource your happiness and your self-image and your way of living to external events, really ask yourself, does that really matter? Is that really changing your pleasant life? Is that really affecting your existence in any way, what someone else is thinking? Because, and I'm gonna kind of give a sneak peek in my chapter and unleash her.
Yay, because I don't know. I haven't, everybody doesn't know on this is that we don't know what each other has written yet. No. We won't see each other's chapters until the book is published. So we're just, I know I am like sitting on the edge of my seat to see everybody's stories.
Exactly. I cannot wait to hold that book actually and read it. But one of the things that I'm talking about in my chapter is we need to make the difference of what's real and what's not real for us personally as an individual. And a long time ago, I've discovered that other people's opinion is not real for me. The way that other people live is not real for me. Other people's expectations I define as not real. And what's real is how I wake up every morning. What's real is my struggles every day. What's real are my tears, when I'm sad, or my laughter when I'm extremely happy, or my excitement when I'm going for dinner with friends. That's what's real for me. And I would challenge everyone woman out there to really determine and define from her day-to-day life what's real and what's not real.
And sadly, trauma sometimes really brings that home for us. So for me, and I still worry about things I shouldn't. So let me just start there. But, after losing my husband, things, most things that happen, I kind of shrug my shoulders, to be honest, because they really don't feel important. Having that very significant trauma changed my opinion of, for me, what is important, or it made me recognize what is important, to your point. And so that was life-changing in some terrible, terrible ways. But then also there are some things, the learnings that I've had from that trauma have helped me focus in on things that are important to me and things that bring joy, and make me step back sometimes when I can feel myself getting off track.
Yeah, and that's actually a quite common state of being, let's say. So from neuropsychology point of view, it takes a really big effort for self-disciplining the mind. And because if we look at our life day to day, right, we wake up in the morning, we go to work, we spend 8 hours. Some people spend 10, 12 hours at work. That's pretty much a lifetime. And then you go back home, you cook, or you eat, or you put your kids to sleep, or you you do your laundry or anything you have to do that you couldn't do. And that's pretty much your day gone. And then you're off to bed, and here we go again. So what happens in those 24 time period is that you don't have the time to sit down, focus, and self-discipline your mind. But when you have an extreme event of either overexcitement of joy or an extreme event of a trauma, this is when the body basically and the mind stop completely paying attention to everything else. And this is when the process of self-disciplining starts. And this is basically narrowing down the focus. That's self-discipline. It's narrowing down the focus on a specific thing or specific event, and then starting exploring that event or thing and how is that affecting you back. So it's a little bit like a reverse engineering on, something needs to hit you for you to stop and start paying attention to things. And it doesn't have to be that way. And this is one of the things what I promote in the subscription box is you don't need to wait for that moment, of an excitement, or you don't, let's not, wait until any type of a trauma happens to us, because it will happen. It's inevitable. It's for everyone at some point, it will happen. For some people, it's many times. For some people, could be one significant, but we all will go through that. If before that you manage to identify yourself, if you manage to understand yourself, if you manage to balance yourself out by knowing what's important and what's not, if you manage to wake up every morning excited about your life because you are building your life, and go to bed being happy and having that smile of, well, that was a job well done today, no matter what kind of event comes to your life, it's not going to throw you off balance that quickly. It will slow you down for sure, but it's not going to have the same enormous effect as we keep going every day and we don't think about those things. It's like, imagine you wake up in the morning and you had a horrible nightmare. And you wake up in the morning and you're kind of, not sure what happened. You feel a bit anxious about that dream because it was a bad dream. And then kind of your entire day goes in that mood because you still have the memory of that feeling. And then you meet your friends for dinner and they give you a gift, which is a present that you wanted for so long. And it's something that really makes you happy and excited. But because you woke up in that condition and you have not balanced yourself out throughout the day, you can't even feel happy about the gift or the present you're receiving. And then we start feeling guilty, we start feeling shameful, we start feeling angry and frustrated with us because we're not controlling that. And slowly but surely, we end up in a very angry, very stressful situation. And then if we keep piling up, a week down the line, we're going to be depressed.
Wow, that's a really good way of breaking down how we, it sort of tells us what should we not do so that we can learn to be resilient. Because, I think what you said about resilience, and then what you just talked about in terms of what is it? Well, it's really, like you said, it's that self-discipline, that training of our mind, that making sure that it's not this one big activity. It's all these things that we do to keep that's really what resilience is to me.
Exactly. Absolutely. And no need to put labels on resilience. It's different. It's different for everyone, and everyone will have their coping mechanism. But one thing is, resilience have a foundation, and that foundation is you have a bad moment, you understand that bad moment, you live through your bad moment, you accept it, and then you find your anchor that makes you get out of bed and live your life. And that's the foundation of resilience, of being strong, of being unstoppable. Many words out there existing for that, but this is overall foundation. And the more we practice that, the more this becomes a lifestyle. And tomorrow, if something, a storm happens in your life, it's not going to throw you off your balance that easily, because you've practiced yourself through different moments and times. You've questioned yourself in the best possible way. You've experimented with yourself in the best possible way. You know your weaknesses. We all have them. We know our strengths, again, we all have them. But then you know how to balance them out. And for me, and in psychology, balance is basically the key word. And all the books I've read, all exercises that I'm putting in the subscription box are basically mental exercises for emotional balance. Because once you're stable as a rock, nothing can break you, no matter good or bad.
Yeah, it's true. And I would also say, to encourage people that, you don't have to do all of it overnight. So it's not like you wake up one morning and you start journaling and all this. Sometimes it's just that you get out of bed 10 minutes earlier. Sometimes it's that you actually get 2 loads of laundry done. Sometimes it's just these baby steps, but then as you continue to do that, you see the change in your life, and then you should celebrate those. So you don't have to feel like, today I had this thing happen and all of a sudden tomorrow I have to walk through all these steps and then I'm good. It takes time, and it is retraining ourselves. I mean, it's just, we're just human. But we do, if we can think a little bit about how we're wired, how psychology works, that is the study of human behavior. We all have, a unique experience. We also have so many of the same ways that we operate. And so we can take the lesson from that and figure out how it fits into how it works for us in that unique way.
Absolutely. And very good point there, that it doesn't happen overnight. This is not magic. It's not Hogwarts. It does require a lot of consistency. It requires self-discipline as well. It requires your power of will. It requires you to be honest, to be transparent with yourself in that journaling, in those moments. And it requires you to really bring yourself to that awareness. I did that yesterday. I'm in the same situation at the moment. Let me try a new reaction. No one's going to be offended if you respond 3 seconds later to a question. But it will give you a whole new point of view, a whole new perception that you can keep journaling and keep exploring. And it does become, with over time, a way of living, as you said. Absolutely.
And then it's incorporated into your life. It's not something that you do. It like you said, your fascination was the link between the conscious and the subconscious. And as we make those conscious choices, it becomes part of how we operate subconsciously, and that's retraining our mind, right?
Exactly. And this is basically what the neurolinguistic programming is based on. So there are a lot of words out there for that method of programming. Some people call it affirmation, some people call it positive cards and so on. But really, what's the foundation, and everyone can do that, is once you make a negative statement or you have a negative experience, or let's not even call it negative, let's call it unhealthy or unpleasant. Let's not call it negative.
Okay.
Let's see how we can transform that in a pleasant experience, or something that's a bit more purposeful and motivational. So, for example, if you say, I have a horrible job, I hate my job, I can't stand my job now, I'm having difficulties get out of bed in the morning. That's the unhealthy statement. Now, how can we transform that in a bit more healthier way? I am currently staying in a, let's say, a lessonsful experience while I'm searching for my best place that can help me be my best version. And how positive and how healthier that sounds, rather than, oh, I hate my job, I can't do that anymore. I'm currently going through a lesson, and that's all right, because I'm learning so many new things while I'm searching for my place under the sun where I can be my best self.
Ooh,
So
I like that.
It's things like this that can really, while you journal, those things pop up for you, all of them. And you can see the pattern. And if you do a journaling for a month and you go back to the beginning, you read through those pages and you're like, I've come far away from where I've been, that was a long journey. And you can feel happy and satisfied. And that gives, it strengthens your relationships. It gives you a better health because you no longer have those stress levels that can bring you a disease or even worse. You have more productive days at work. You feel more satisfied with things you do. You even feel happy when you're a couch potato and you don't do anything. You're like, I deserve that because I had such a good week this week. It just brings a brand new perspective for everything.
It's funny, I was thinking, sometimes it's like housework, so the other day I had to do some housework and I was like, oh, I'd just rather do something else. And I thought, no, I need to reframe this. I'm lucky. I get to clean the house. I have a house. I'm so blessed, and then it sort of changes. I know that sounds simple, but it is true. So then it's like, okay, I'm gonna put on my music and I get to clean my home. I'm lucky. I'm blessed to have this home. And while it's a little bit of work, it's something that is also brings me much joy. So
exactly.
yeah.
I always tell my colleagues when we have a lot of work to do and, I speak with my people and I'm like, when you have your to-do list in front of you, pick the top 3 things that have the biggest impact on, the business objectives, and then start with the one that's most fun for you, that brings you the most joy. Because even if you don't go through the rest 2 or 9, you will still feel like it's a job well done because you had fun, you're having an impact, and it gives you a purpose. And having a purposeful life and a meaning in what you're doing gives so much more than we can imagine, actually.
And that's why we became a part of the Unleash Her story, because, really wanting to elevate these topics that I think all of us as women struggle with, and finding a way for women to support one another and to give each other permission to be authentic and genuine. I think I love what you said about outsourcing happiness. That is just so profound.
It's a fact that we do that, but the book Unleash Her is going to be literally a practical guide, step by step, what women across the world have done, how we've managed to break those glass ceiling above us, how we've managed to break those rules, how we've managed to, come on the other side, and how they can do it, because they can use, every woman who reads that book can use our example and translate that into her own experience and, steal a little bit from me, from you, and from the rest of the 28 women in that book, and really build that successful way for her in whatever she wants. It's going to be brilliant.
It is. Any last tips that you want to give the viewers and listeners on, resilience or trauma that they can take away?
Don't define yourselves with other people's opinions and expectations. Try and build your own words. Try and build your own definitions of things. Resilience is different for everyone, and we all have trauma. And don't be afraid to question yourself. Don't be afraid to explore, and don't be afraid to celebrate yourself when you do something really nice, even if it's having a nice bathtub because you just can't be bothered with anything else.
I think that's great advice. Now, just a last plug on the book. We're going to be in Edinburgh.
We will.
So that's going to be the first part of November.
Exactly. So stay tuned, because Jillian and I are going to be in Edinburgh, venue to be confirmed, but we're going to do a big book launch. We're going to be signing copies. We're going to be giving interviews, and we're going to be there answering any questions that you may need to know from us. So stay tuned.
Well, thank you for spending time with me. It's I know it's getting later your time there in Scotland. We're starting our day here in California. So, I'll catch up with you in a bit. But again, the wisdom that you have imparted on all of us today, I learned so much. And I am so grateful for all of the things that you communicated to us today on how we can find that life with purpose, get through those traumas, and, just have joy. And as you said, a pleasant life. I love that.
Thanks, Jillian. And thanks to everyone who will be listening and joining us. And have a wonderful day, California.
Thank you. And I will link the book information, but I'll also link the information for the box, the Pandora box that is put together for your wellness. If you'd like to order that and see what that's all about, because I know it's amazing.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you very